All right, my friends, grab your brushes and your paints, and I've got this drawing of this basket and apples, and we're gonna break down, we're gonna simplify the reference photo quite a bit to make it easy. Yeah, let's get started. First of all, we're gonna mix up a red or a pinky orange for the very base of the apples. So we're gonna want to, if you don't have a pink, just dilute a red and see how that looks. And then I'm gonna mix a little bit of orange into mine. And you're gonna wanna test that color out. And that looks pretty good. And you want it fairly light, so water it down with water. And let's start with a base layer. So we're gonna go in on to the dry paper. And we're gonna go and lay down our first wash of color. So if you need to dilute it a little bit, just dunk in your brush into the water as you go. All right, so we're not gonna color every single apple the same red, because there's a few little hints of greenish yellow spots. So we're just gonna look at the reference photo and as best we can see where those red apples are and try to lay down that basic color. And I'm going to avoid all the places where I think I see a bit of green. Need some more pigment. Okay. And a good tip is have the reference photo in direct view. I usually have it on my laptop in front of me, and that way I can keeping an eye on that reference photo as I go along and paint. It really does help. And it doesn't have to be perfect. This is gonna be kind of like a light, sketchy painting. All right, so we're almost done with this first layer. There we go. All right, so the next part we're gonna do is we need a bit of a greeny yellow color. So pick out whatever green you have, and if it's not yellow enough, add in some yellow and mix it out and swatch it, and let's see. So I've got a green gold, which is already quite yellow. So I think I'm gonna go directly in and use that. And I'm gonna water it down a bit because it's a bit strong. And right here, I'm gonna soften the edge because we have a bright highlight right on the top here. So I'm gonna wash my brush, dab off the water, and just go along that edge and just blend it out because we wanna keep a highlight right on the top here. And we're just gonna go over where we see the greens and fill those in. The next color we're gonna need is quite a vibrant red. And so I like to call it the fire truck red, but I don't have that. So what I'm gonna do is I've got a pinky red, which is pretty close to that fire truck red, but it's lacking kind of orange hues to it. So I'm gonna go in and grab a bit of orange and I'm gonna put that in. And I think that will give me more of the color I'm looking for. So this is more pink and this is kind of more of that vibrant orangey red. let's do that. All right. And now we're gonna start building up the layers of the apple. And basically this red is we're gonna start using this to aid to the realism. So I put that one layer down, and now I'm gonna go in with my clean brush and soften that edge and blend it. Okay. Get some more pigment. And the darkest parts of the apple are gonna be mostly like on the underside, where they're kind of hidden in the shadow of the basket. So I wanna keep that in mind. Clean your brush to blend out those edges. Slowly start building up layers to give it that round effect. And it's gonna go through an ugly stage as you get those colors built up, but you just gotta trust the process. All right, clean your brush, blend those edges. You wanna try to maintain that highlight. So what I do is just clean that brush and wipe it off. More pigment. Okay. And like I said, you gotta just keep looking up at the reference photo, and your eyes will slowly get trained in mimicking where those shadows are and where the highlights are. And it takes practice to develop that eye, but over time, you just get better and better. All right, blend out that edge with a clean brush. Okay. Same with here. Clean your brush, blend that area out. Just keep on working. And if I'm going too fast, just pause the video. Take it at your own pace. Okay. All right. So, like I said, as you build up these colors, layer by layer, it just really starts to take the shape of the object you're trying to paint. The key with watercolors is that you want to start with your lightest lights, and you want to build up the color layer by layer until your painting starts to resemble what you're trying to go for, in this case, apples. We're almost at the point where we can mix our next color. And our next red is going to be darker. All right, so this next color is quite a bit of darker. It's like a deep burgundy red. And so what we have right now is more of a vibrant fire truck red. So we need to tone this down quite a bit. So I'm gonna grab more of that red pigment. And the complement to cool this down would be blue. So just add a touch of blue into that, and it's gonna push it to more into the purple. And we also wanna darken it up. So I'm gonna take a touch of black, I'm gonna add that into it. A little goes a long way, so start off slow and then build it up from there. Okay, I'm gonna swatch this out. Now I'm thinking I added a little bit too much blue to this, so I'm gonna go back with my red, because it's more of a purpley at this point. And you only need a touch of blue, and then a little bit more black. Okay. And I'm gonna add a bit of orange because it's still on the cool side. And it's just really about experimenting. You add warm colors to warm it up and cool colors to cool it down. Okay, that's better. So this, it was missing a bit of orange because it's almost like almost a brown, like a reddish brown, but really on that dark side. So that's perfect. And it's quite dark. So you have to, this is why having this extra piece of paper for swatching colors is so important, because as you add in different colors, like your blues and your reds and your orange, and you're trying to create that perfect shade that you're looking for, that paper is gonna, you don't want to be putting colors that you regret, because with watercolor there's no erasing, so you kind of have to be a little more certain with those colors. All right, let's put this darker shade down, and this is really gonna start to pop those shadows. So this is really gonna go, and I have to pay attention to this layer and where the darkest shadows are, because this is where it's really gonna start to pop. All right, so lay that down. You're gonna wanna clean your brush and blend out that edge. And we might need to go even a shade darker, because the darkest darks are actually quite black in these apples. I'm gonna drop in more of that pigment on top of that wet. And you want to be careful that this color doesn't go throughout your apple entirely, where you're gonna create quite muddy apples, which is really not what we're going for. Okay, now I'm gonna go in just some of these areas in between the apples, because you can, if you look at the reference photo, it is quite dark. I'm just using the reference photo as a guide, going in and filling in where I see those darkest darks. Okay, I'm gonna plunk some. I'm gonna go for the black, and I'm gonna put this into the shadow colors. Just plop it right into the wet. Actually, I might want to mix this into my red a little bit here. There we go, because it's a bit too black. And you don't want to go and put the black pigment up on the top here. You want to kind of keep that that lighter dark red color. And then I forgot the stray apples down here. So we want to take that dark chocolate red and start creating the shadows along these stray apples outside of the basket. We are going to need for the basket, it's kind of like a peachy golden color. So I've got a kind of a golden yellow here that I'm going to work from. You can also just use straight yellow. And we're going to add a little bit of orange to it. And maybe also a bit of pink. If you don't have pink, try a tiny bit of red. A little bit more of that red color, some more of the yellow. Just swatch it until it looks good. Okay, I've got this pink here that I'm gonna add to it. Okay, I'm gonna say that's close enough. Okay, water it down because we're gonna start this pretty light, and we're gonna start with the basket handle. And you're just gonna go in and give it a nice light wash for the final layer, the first layer. And we're gonna do that for the entire basket. Just a wash of that. So the next color we're gonna swatch is, we're gonna go with a orangey brown to start darkening things up. So take that color that you just used. We're gonna put some orange in here and some red. And that's gonna be pretty vibrant. So we're also gonna add a tiny little bit of blue, and that will tone that color down a little bit. Little goes a long way, my friends. Okay, swatch that out. We want it a little bit darker. So I lost a little bit of red in that because I went too far into the blue, so we just add a bit more red back. Let's test that out. Perfect, I like it. So it's got a orangey red brown vibe to that. So I'm gonna add a little bit of water into this. Just dry my brush a little bit. We don't want it too wet. Okay, so now we're gonna go in and start creating a bit of shadowing, which the brightest part is the handle here. So we're gonna go, and I'm gonna simplify this basket quite a lot because we don't need all this detail. Okay, clean your brush. Okay, we're gonna go in and blend, blend, blend. Okay, we're gonna do the other side. And this darker color comes up the handle, only part way. So we're gonna blend this edge here, and then just drop in the color where you think you see the darkest shadows. Now let's go in and we're gonna create a shadow in here, or a start of one. We're gonna actually cool this down even further in this area, but let's get a base layer of that shadow, and I'm gonna add a little bit more orange into this color for the inside of the basket, just to give a bit of color variation so it doesn't look all the same. Because it's darker on the inside here. All right. And you can just be fast and loose with this. Okay, and now there is a shadow on this side of the basket as well. So let's start that shadow. By using this orangey color first. And there's gonna be a little shadow under this this lip of the basket here too. Okay. And I'm gonna go about that far and then blend this edge. Okay. And then just add a few line details. If you look at the reference photo, the shadow starts up at the top here and you go down. And let's just go along the basket. And we don't want this so hard, so we are gonna clean our brush and just blend that. Got a little messy. Okay. And so we're starting to see a little bit of detail there. All right, so we're gonna go in and darken this down to more of a chocolate brown. So I've got a burnt umber. I'm gonna add that into our pre-existing color, and it's quite dark, so I'm gonna add a bit of black. And that should give more of a chocolatey brown instead of an orange. Now I'm gonna go in on some of these stronger shadow areas, like in the corner inside the basket here. And I wanna, yet again, we're gonna blend the edge. Okay. And then our other strong shadows along here. Okay, clean your brush. Soften these edges. Just make it all blended. Okay. Beautiful. And I'm also gonna go in and add just a little bit of detail to the rim of the basket. And if you look, you can see just these little line details. We're not gonna get too complicated, just a suggestion of detail. And you just wanna go in the direction of those lines, and they don't have to be specific, but if you go within the direction, you can kind of create the illusion of detail. I'm gonna darken up this base highlight here. Maybe a little bit more pigment in this shadow, because there's certain places where it's a bit darker. And this area is still wet for me, so I'm just plopping that right into that wet area, which will help disperse that pigment and blend it naturally. Okay, same with this. I'm just gonna drop in a little bit more pigment, clean our brush, blend this out. Okay, this is looking pretty good. We still need the apples to pop, so we still have to add a bit of a glaze on them. All right, so I'm gonna take this dark brown and we're gonna go up along the handle here, and we're gonna create that little bit of a strong shadow in some of these areas. So on the inside here is the strongest shadow. So we're gonna just darken that up, give a little bit of detail here, like that. And again on this side, we're just gonna create a few of those little handle details, that darker color. Perfect. All right, nothing too complicated. I'm gonna just clean my brush and blend these little lines here because we don't want them too harsh, because the bright light is really concentrated at the top of this handle, and so we don't want actually too many details in that area. Okay, so we are going to let this basket dry, go change your water, and then come back and add the final details on those apples and maybe a little bit of grass here and go from there. Okay, let's do the grass. So we're just gonna do a suggestion of a shadow here, just to ground the piece. So we need a bit of a dark green. I've got this dark green color here. I'm gonna add in a little bit of this gold green, which if you don't have, just use a bit of yellow. And then some purple. And when I say purple, you can add blue in too, because it's also a cool color. And then let's test this out. And then so that really pushes it to more of an olive green, which I like. Okay, so I'm gonna water a little bit down here. And then we're gonna go along the base. And if your basket is still wet, which this shadow area will be for me, don't go over there and use the pigment because it will run right into the brown color. So I'm just gonna go and not touch the brown with my brush and just go around it so that color doesn't bleed into the brown and just create a gross mess. And also just wait until it dries. Okay, now clean our brush and we are going to blend. Oops. Don't know how much I'm gonna do this grass really. I didn't plan that out. I didn't think about that. Okay, let's maybe go around the apples a little bit. I'm gonna blend those edges. Give a little bit of love down to this corner apple. Okay, now I want to darken that green up a little bit, so add a little bit of black. I added a lot of black, that's fine. And then go in to the base again and just plop that dark green right into the strongest shadow area. Just like that. Okay, and then also just along the base of the apples so that they don't look like they're floating on the grass. Kind of grounds them. It suggests, hey, I'm sitting on the ground. Blend that edge. Okay. I think I'm gonna go and blend this strong area here too. I like it. This is the section I wanted to do a light glaze over the apples, but I was experimenting with these new Viviva watercolors and they are way too pigmented and end up covering up a lot of the details. And so my idea was to go in with a fire truck red by adding a very thin layer of watercolor to the entire apple, keeping in mind the highlighted areas. Now, don't get me wrong, this really made them red, and I did want to brighten them up, but I did not want to brighten them up this much. And I spent the next while after putting this watercolor down trying to fix what I did in this section. And you can watch me descend into madness as I have to paint all those details back in. Here I'm going to do a thin wash of watercolor over the basket section using a very watered down yellow with a touch of orange in it, and that's just going to kind of brighten up the basket a little bit. I mean, it looks kind of washed out now with those Viviva watercolors in the apples, right? So this is optional. You don't have to go to this step if you don't want to, but if you do want a little bit of a brighter color to that, I would just suggest just going over the entire basket with a light wash of that yellow and orange mixture. I'm going to sign off. This is the last bit of footage is just me trying to salvage those details that I got washed out by the Viviva colors, and I hope you guys learned something. If you want me to do a specific topic to help explain any concepts, let me know.